You look nice.
Thanks.
Yeah. Matching today.
Yes, we are, and it was not intended. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to Full Fat Faith podcast.
Full Fat Faith. Wonderful podcast. And tell your friends, tell your family members. I'm a big fan of this. It's good to be back. Tell you, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
Weather's a bit, so-and-so, but I'm feeling good.
Yeah. Today is one of those days where we get to go into something really, really fun.
Yeah.
Something a bit crucial, something that touches all of us, no matter who you are. It's going to affect you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the topic, Elado?
Thank you very much for asking, Tele. Today, we're talking about work and burnout. Work and burnout. Mm-hmm. This is one of those topics that touches everyone, as I said, and we all have some form of work to do. Work can be a good thing. I don't know what you thought when you heard the word work, when you heard the word burnout. Many people have different relationships with the idea of work. And today we're going to unpack a bit about that. We're going to look at what the Christian perspective on work is and how we can avoid burnout. So without further ado, let's jump in. What is the Christian perspective on work? Well, in Colossians chapter 3, right at the end of the chapter, we get a really good insight from the Apostle Paul, and he's talking to a congregation and he's telling them all about work. And these are the couple of verses. So verse 23 and 24, he says, "And whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of the inheritance, for you serve the Lord Christ." Wow. So whatever you do, do it properly, do it with vigor, because you're working for God, not for men.
Very good.
So it's really important, isn't it, for us to say, okay, well, when we're working, how can we put our hearts into this? How can we work heartily and ensure that when we do it, we're doing it for God?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, especially Christians, there's this idea of the Protestant work ethic, which is that, this passage and many others tell us that we should work hard. And because of that, lots of Christians put their hearts and souls into their work, and they really go out, and you've seen some amazing things come out of Christians. And there is, as with every coin, there are two sides to it. So there can be this great side, which is so many amazing things can be produced from good work and from conscientious work. But there's the flip side, which is sometimes people can take it a bit too far, and unfortunately it can lead to a toxic relationship with work and potentially eventually to burnout. Tell us a little bit about your experience, your history, your relationship with work. What's that been like?
Yeah. I've definitely had several jobs in my 20s at the same time. So, for example, I was in politics, I was working in Parliament, I had a podcast at one point. Always doing multiple things. When I left politics, I was doing consulting, running my business, running a book club. So I've always done loads of things. And I went to therapy, and I remember we looked at my relationship with work, and she kind of said, is it due to maybe approval from, you're seeking approval from like your parents? Is it some deep trauma? And I was like, no, not really. Like there's just, I just feel like as a Christian, and I remember saying to her, I feel like as a Christian, I need to work hard. Like for me, I'm taught faith without work is dead. And I always used to quote that passage. So I said to her, like, that's just what it is for me. I feel like, how can I have faith and not go out there and work hard? And also seeing my mum, work so hard to build what she's built here, and my dad as well. It just like, why would I not do the same when that's the kind of like model that I've grown up with. Despite going through therapy, etc., the relationship in terms of work became really bad. Anxiety, sleeping late, losing weight. I generally started to gain a lot of anxiety around doing work. Sometimes it then led to like procrastination. And then I had to really reflect on, why am I working this hard when I trust in the Lord, and the Lord says to me, like, I know the plans for you. Man plans, but God's plans like are bigger and the ones that will prevail. So I started to just question, why am I having such an unhealthy relationship with work and working so hard, what is it for?
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing. I mean, I think a lot of people probably resonate with that, with the idea of, okay, well, I'm working so hard. I don't even know what I'm working for.
Yeah.
But I'm pushing myself. I'm really pushing myself. And then
Yeah.
eventually they get to this point where they can almost break.
Yeah.
Did you ever get to a point where it was just like, I can't even do this anymore?
Yeah. I decided to leave politics despite having quite a promising career if I had continued. I stood to be an MP in 2019. Didn't win, obviously. But yeah, I was really young. Like I said, my career was kind of rising in politics, but I took a decision, I'd say probably actually around after that general election, 2019, I just said, I don't feel like my heart is in it anymore. And I'm actually so tired. I'm getting to a general burnout all the time. And yeah, I decided to not stand again in the next election, which was in 2022 for the locals. And that was a tough decision, but I think it was the right decision for my mental health, for my spiritual life as well, because I was spending more time at work than I was in church. Like I was missing church to go campaigning, like literally. And I used to be part of the church choir, and I was missing that as well, just so I can, go and do things for the party that I was part of. So my priorities just wasn't there, and I was missing family things as well. Like I missed my sister's birthday. I didn't go to a birthday dinner because, again, I was working. So, yeah, it got to that stage.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, I think a lot of people probably resonate with that. And that is what can happen if we have an unhealthy relationship with work,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
So you have an idea or a concept of work and you think, okay, well, it has to be this way. And then you don't really see or feel the need for rest.
Yeah.
One of the wonderful things about the Bible is that it can help you with many, many situations, and this is another one. God and Jesus model many things, and work and rest are two things that God modeled for us. And I want to read to you just very, very quickly a verse from Genesis, which is, it shows God's idea and God's ideal for work and rest. And it's from chapter 2. So it's after God has worked 6 whole days. And he has been creating, and he then says, okay, it's probably time for me to rest. And this is what it says, Genesis chapter 2 goes,
In the beginning.
in the beginning.
In the beginning. Man left his wife.
There we go. So it says here, chapter 2, verse 1, thus the heavens and the earth and all the host of them were finished. So God has worked for 6 whole days, creating everything out of nothing. And then eventually it says, verse 2, and on the 7th day, God ended his work which he had done. And he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had done. Then God blessed the 7th day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which God had created and made. So he blessed this day because it was the day that he could say, yes, I've now rested from my work. And so God's modeled this idea here for us, and he said, okay, you should work. Many people will go the opposite way and they'll say, oh yeah, God rested, so I should rest as well. But he worked for 6 whole days in a row, huge amounts of work, and then allowed himself one day to rest. So not only has he modeled this though, he's also mandated it. So he's told us this is what you have to do as well. And we're going to go here to Exodus chapter 35, where Moses is talking to the Israelites. And he's received a word from God about work and rest. And this is what he has to say to people. Chapter 35, verse 1 and 2. It says, then Moses gathered all the congregation of the children of Israel together and said to them, these are the words which the Lord has commanded you to do. And then verse 2, work shall be done for 6 days, but the 7th day shall be a holy day for you, a Sabbath of rest to the Lord. Whoever does any work on it shall be put to death.
Wow.
Don't work. Rest when it's time. God's mandated this. So not only did he model it in Genesis chapter 2, chapters 1 and 2, he also mandated it here in Exodus 35. He said, it's time for you to rest. Work diligently for 6 days and then rest. Because if you don't, you're going to die in one way or another, right? And God is showing us how to have a healthy relationship with work. Yes, it's important for us to work and work hard, but at the same time, we need to rest.
That's good, yeah.
What do you think about the idea of mandated rest? Like, this is something you should do.
I think it's important. I think it's a principle that we should adhere to for our soul, for our relationship with God, and just generally for relationships with our friends, our family, and just to experience other things than work. Sometimes I think work can be a prison, and I think some of us don't know we're operating in that kind of like boxed, environment.
Yeah.
I think again it minds about your mentality, right? Because you might not actually see that the relationship is unhealthy, like you said, but it is. And I think sometimes I was going to ask you. Obviously, the Pharisees questioned Jesus, right, about him healing someone. I think was it he healed.
Yes, on the Sabbath.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on that? Because some Christians are like, I've
So
had
good.
this. Yeah.
Such a good question. Yeah. So the Sabbath is a day that we're supposed to rest. God said, this is a holy day. I rested because I worked for 6 days in a row. I'm going to rest on the Sabbath day. Jesus is met with some ill people, right? An ill man and a sick man. And the man asks him, will you heal me? And the Pharisees are looking because they know he's not supposed to do anything on the Sabbath. We're all supposed to rest on the Sabbath. That's what's happened. And Jesus looks at them and he says, what do you think? Is it the right thing for me to do to heal this guy? Well, I'm supposed to rest, but here's somebody who needs my help. What should I do? The Pharisees didn't say anything. And Jesus was fuming. He was very angry. He was indignant. And he went and healed the man regardless. So is this Jesus saying the Sabbath doesn't matter? No, not at all. He says something really interesting, which is that the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. That is, the Sabbath, that day of rest, is supposed to be for us, and it's to lift us up. So if there's a moment where you need to not rest so that somebody else can be lifted up, somebody can be helped, of course you take that opportunity. That's a great question.
And I'm glad that you've explained and articulated like that, because I think sometimes as us Christians, we look at the Old Testament, then we look at the New Testament, and there's that kind of conflict, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of think, okay, no, I have to adhere to what it says in the Old Testament, but then Jesus did this, and then you kind of shift to the understanding that you want, that allows you to kind of have that way of working, right? So I'm going to shift my mentality to the New Testament because actually I want to be able to work, and then you gain that unhealthy relationship, but it's backed up by this Bible verse. And then if it's like, oh no, I'm adhering to working 6 days a week because it's backed up by. So I think that's what sometimes we do when we look at the Bible.
So good.
We take certain texts and we try to interpret it to make how we work or how the relationship we have with work feel right because it's backed up by scripture.
So good.
So yeah.
We need to have a holistic view of the Bible,
That's it,
right?
yeah.
The Old Testament and the New Testament work
Yeah.
together. And that's a really great example that Tele's brought up of where the Old Testament and the New Testament can be perceived as being in conflict, but really they're not. They're working together.
They are together.
And on that note, I think it's going to be really good for us to look at an Old Testament example and a New Testament example. I'm going to jump into an Old Testament one before Tele will take us away with a New Testament one. And my Old Testament one is Moses. So Moses is leading a massive group of people through the wilderness, and he's getting stressed. He's working incredibly hard to ensure that he can lead, he can judge, he can hear from God, he can relay God's messages to the people. And eventually his father-in-law, who better, comes and gives him some advice. And his father-in-law is called Jethro. And we can see here in Exodus 18 that Jethro comes and sees Moses working hard as a judge. And this is what happens. So it says here, Exodus 18, verse 13 onwards, it says, "And so it was on the next day that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood before Moses from morning until evening." So he was working long days. So when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did for the people, he said, "What is this thing that you're doing for the people? Why do you alone sit, and all the people stand before you from morning until evening?" And Moses said to his father-in-law, "Because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a difficulty, they come to me, and I judge between one another, and I make known the statutes of God and his laws." So Moses' father-in-law said to him, "The thing that you do is not good. Both you and these people who are with you will surely wear yourselves out. For this thing is too much for you. You're not able to perform it yourself. Listen now to my voice. I'll give you counsel, and God will be with you. Stand before God for the people so that you may bring the difficulties to God, and you shall teach them the statutes and the laws, and show them the way in which they must walk and the work they must do. Moreover, you shall select from all the people able men such as fear God, men of truth, blah, 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 and let them judge the people at all times. So it will be easier for you, for they will bear the burden with you. Fantastic idea. So Jethro comes and he says, listen, you're working too hard. You're the only one. You're not delegating at all. You're doing all of this work. People are coming to you. You don't have any time to rest. So he advised him, he says, please just delegate some of the work. Find able people, give them some of the work that you do, and then you can spend your time, focus on your relationship with God so that you'll be better placed to serve the people. An excellent example of avoiding burnout. This is exactly what the model is. Work hard, ensure you focus on the things that matter, and then eventually rest.
And get support.
Get some support.
Get some support.
That's it.
As well. I love that. That's very, very good. Very
Shout out
wise
Jethro.
words. As Elado said, we are now going to go to the New Testament to look at an example quite similar to Moses. It's Martha and Mary's story, and it can be found in Luke 10, verses 38 to 42. As Jesus and his disciples went on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary who sat down at the feet of the Lord and listened to his teaching. Martha was upset over all the work she had to do, so she came and said, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to come and help me. The Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled over so many things, but just one is needed. Mary has chosen the right thing, and it will not be taken away from her. That is such a powerful, short passage, but it provides such insight into what myself and Elado are talking about today. If we look at Martha and then we look at Mary and we analyse their behaviours, for Martha, there was not a problem with her wanting to serve, but the issue was her heart's condition. Now, she was anxious, she was burdened and frustrated. And if we look at Mary, Mary understood that intimacy with Jesus was more important than activity or going around and working for Jesus. And Jesus highlights this when he says, verse 32, but just one is needed. Mary has chosen the right thing, and it will not be taken away from her. How powerful is that? The reassurance that he's letting us know that I don't need you to be busy doing this, doing that, doing that. All I need you to do is sit at my feet and listen. Be still. Elado, what do you think about both Mary and Martha in that example?
Yeah, I think both of they had good intentions. Both
Yeah.
of them had good intentions, right? And Martha clearly wanted to serve, just as you said. However, she wasn't focused on the main thing. You know how you have like these priorities, right? And so you try and prioritize things, and you try and optimize things for what you want to do. And so you say, okay, in any given situation, I think this is the most important thing. Then this is the most important, then this. And so you try and do them in order. Martha got her order mixed up. God in the flesh was in front of her.
Yeah.
And she thought, okay, the most important thing for me to do is serve him, serve him, serve him. God was calling her at that point to just say, come and abide in me.
Yeah.
And Mary understood that. Right?
Yeah.
Mary understood that instantly, and she said, the most important thing for me to do right now is to listen, to draw near to him.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, Martha, I think once I wouldn't call it a rebuke, but once she was
Bit of a rebuke.
once she was
bit of a rebuke.
a bit of a rebuke, yeah?
I can imagine she was going around frantically, and then she just sees her sister there, and she's like, are you joking me? A little bit of a rebuke. She's probably thinking, oh. But with every rebuke, I think deep down there comes a bit of like conviction.
There is. And she was convicted in that moment. And yeah, I think it's very, very clear that what happened was she must have understood, oh, okay, I got it wrong. Fair enough. The most important thing for me to do is to try and rest, abide with Christ and abide in him. So I think she probably would have learned something from this.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
And I noted some things that in that passage, if we look at our own lives today, sometimes a lot of us might be serving, one, for people's approval, or two, we feel we have this need to serve because Jesus has done something so amazing for us, such a like we can't even put it into an amount, and therefore I owe Jesus something. So I want to be a Martha and be running around trying to prepare, trying to do things, and that might actually be in church. Sometimes we see people serving 7 days a week non-stop, and I always think, where is that coming from? Is it coming from a place of worship, or is it actually coming from a place of, I need Jesus to know that I'm thankful? And yeah.
I love that.
Where
I
is it
really
actually
like that.
coming from, the service? I'm not saying serving is wrong, but is it, like I said, is it for the approval of man? Or is it because you feel this guilt for what Jesus has done for you, therefore you're serving him and thinking that's what's going to make him happy?
Wow. Wow. The gift of grace, right, is a gift. And this is exactly what Telly's hinting at. It's that there's nothing we can do to earn that gift or earn
our salvation.
You know what I mean? And so God has freely given this to us. And if we try and say, no, I need to pay him back, it's impossible to pay him back.
Yes.
Of course, there's an obligation for us to live right lives, but there's no way we'd be able to work hard enough to pay him back for that incredible sacrifice. Really good point.
Yeah. Elado, have you ever served in church and then felt like that was your identity as well?
Yeah. Really good question.
Or have you ever, like, my second question to you, I guess, and I kind of know the answer to this, have you ever wanted to serve extra and then maybe thought, why am I actually doing, like, serving in church? Like, what was the reason behind me doing that?
Yeah, it's really, yeah. So with non-church work, you sort of feel as though, oh, okay, I can have a healthy relationship with this. I know when I need to stop. I was pretty good at understanding when to stop and when to take a break. With church, it's a very different thing. And as Telly's hinted, you sort of get into this point where you're like, I need to do more. I need to do more. I need to be serving more. I need to do this. And many times I've thought, okay, I'm doing something on a Tuesday, on a Monday, on a Wednesday, on a whatever. I need to do more. I'm serving on a Sunday. I need to do more. And then whenever opportunities come up, sometimes just to be there to receive, I'll find a way to say, okay, I need to go and serve in this time. And I remember there was one point when I looked at Telly and I was just like, I think I have to, I think I should do this. I can't remember what it was. I was trying to...
he wanted to join a specific team in our church.
That's it. And she just looked at me and she was just like, nah.
Like, but why are you joining that team?
Why is this necessary?
Yeah.
And I remember just sitting back and just thinking, is this necessary? What's the point? What am I trying to do here? What am I trying to prove? Am I trying to prove something to God, to man, or to myself? What is it? And she just said, you don't need to do that. Just wait, just rest. And I remember resting and not joining that team. And there was a great flourishing that came afterwards. I know that sounds a bit odd, not doing anything and then eventually seeing the fruits of not doing anything later. But really, that's what happened. And God calls us to work when there's something we want to, there's something he needs us to do. If we start putting ourselves into this too much and overthinking it and thinking, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, it's not going to be good. And working in the kingdom is one of those things where you just really shouldn't overpush. And I got to the point where I was overpressing and overpushing. And fortunately, I had somebody who was able to tell me, you're doing too much. And I was able to draw back. So thank God for Telly. And so for me, it's always been out of, similar to Martha, it's always been out of wanting to sort of give back.
Yeah.
But then there are times when it's just about resting.
Yeah, and I think another reason why you may be like Elado, I've even had times like that as well, is when sometimes maybe you're new to faith or new to Christianity. And we often see when people come to Christianity, they feel as if, I have to join a team, I have to do this, it's like tick boxing to prove their Christianity badge. But again, it could lead to burnout or to emptiness of the soul. And I think our own pastors have actually spoken to us about this. I remember, was it last year, me and Elado wanted to join our youth team at our church. And we had a conversation with the pastor, and then he was like, "You guys are really awesome, but like, I just want to check, are you okay?" And we were like, "Huh?" And he was like, "I just want to make sure that you're not burnt out." And I honestly, that was the first time I heard someone say burnt out and church. It was like, "Are you sure?" He was like, "Yeah, because I don't feel like we leaders sometimes ask people in church whether they're okay or whether they're burning out," because he knew that me and Elado were doing a lot in church. And I think that actually got us thinking like, wow, are we like really stretching ourselves, or is this the Holy Spirit in us and then we've just got the energy to do so much in church? So I think you have to challenge yourself, and I have some questions to help you challenge yourself to understand maybe why are you serving in church, or why are you working in a certain way. And you can ask yourself, have I neglected life with Jesus while staying busy? And then the second question is, am I serving to be seen by people? So yeah, definitely take that time to ask yourself those questions and see what answers come out.
Spend time with Jesus.
Yeah, that's it. And I want to go to, and just to give you a bit of reassurance, we're now going to go to Lazarus.
Hey.
I'm not going to read the whole story. I'm not actually going to read the whole story because it's across John. But I just want to get to the verse. Yeah. Okay. Eladi, can you give us some background into Lazarus?
So Lazarus, great guy. He has two
Martha
sisters.
and Mary, yeah.
He has
Great
two
guy.
sisters. Great women. And so he's ill. And eventually he's ill to the point of death, and he's about to die. And in fact, he does die. Jesus is then told he's died 2 days ago, a day and a half, 2 days ago. If you rush now, you'll be able to get to him right now, and you'll be able to do a miracle. And Jesus says, chill, it's okay. Let's wait 2 more days for him to be really dead, and then we'll see.
So I just saw a TikTok video.
Oh, yeah. Let's go.
And basically, it's a video of Lazarus in heaven, and he's dancing, enjoying
I've seen
himself,
this.
preparing his room and everything. And then the angel just comes, knock, knock, and he's like, "I'm so sorry to do this." And Lazarus is like, "Well, we don't usually do this." And then Lazarus is like, "What?" And the angel's like, "You got to go back." And he's like,
send you
"No!"
back.
Do you know how crazy?
Four
Sorry.
glorious days, yeah.
Go on,
And
yeah.
so Jesus eventually trudges over, and he's met by Martha and Mary, and they're just like, if he'd been here, he wouldn't be dead. Jesus is like, it's okay.